afternoon. Thank you for that kind welcome. My name is Professor Mike Molan. I'm the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Human Sciences at London South Bank University. I'm a barrister by training, and I've been the head of the law department at South Bank, I'm Dean, and also, how many students here are intending to do the bar in England? Right, okay. You will all ask my way in years to come, because I'm also chair of the Central Exam Board for the Bar Standards Board. This is my first time in Bangladesh. I've been here about 12 hours, and it's quite an experience. I'm glad I didn't have to take my driving test. I'm not sure I would have passed, but it would have been quite an experience. So I'm assuming that you're all here because one way or another you all want to be lawyers. Is that right? Okay. Just to get a feel for where you're at. How many of you are doing A-levels at the moment? A-levels? Yeah. Okay. And how many of you are doing the London external degree? Quite a few. Okay. Anyone in their second year London external? Okay. Okay, pretty much first year, right. Okay. I'm going to talk this morning about something that I think most of you will have covered one way or another. Everyone's done some criminal law, is that right? Okay, so you've all done theft? Yes. Yeah? So you've all done dishonesty? Okay. We're going to do it again. But what I want to show you, if you like, is a slightly different style of teaching. If you come to study in the UK, particularly if you come to study at South Bank, we have a very interactive style of lecturing. Some students find that quite challenging because it's not just about sort of taking down notes. There's lots to think about. There's a lot of interaction with the lecturer, but it's very good preparation, particularly if you're going to go on to something like the bar course. So what I want to look at today is the issue of dishonesty in criminal law, and if this is working, we're going to talk about the role that dishonesty plays in criminal law. It plays an absolutely vital role because it's a key element of the offence of theft, and because it's a key element of theft, it's also a key element of burglary. It's a key element of handling stolen goods, and it's a key element of fraud offences. Quite simply, if there's no dishonesty, there's no theft. If there's no theft, there's no burglary in quite a few cases. If there's no dishonesty, there's no handling stolen goods, and so on. So it would really help if we had a clear idea of what dishonesty actually meant. And that's the point that we're going to try and explore over the next 30 minutes or so, to really try and get an understanding of how English criminal law deals with that problem. But before we do that, I think we should also remember this: the procedural significance of dishonesty in English criminal law. Because dishonesty, for centuries really, has been an issue that's been determined by juries. The issue of whether you're dishonest or not is ultimately going to be decided by a jury. Now, let's suppose you are charged with theft of box of tissues. Okay? How much does a box of tissues cost? 40 tack? Yep. Not a lot of money. Okay. If you were charged with theft of this box of tissues in England, would you have the right to be tried at the Old Bailey? Would you have the right to be tried by jury?
No.
Yes, you would. Okay? Because theft is an offence that involves an allegation of dishonesty. The rule is that any offence involving an allegation of dishonesty gives you the right to trial by jury. Now, that's an interesting tactical choice. What happens if you are charged with theft of this box of tissues and you choose jury trial and you're found guilty? What is the judge going to do to you? You're going to get a very strong punishment. Okay? What's going to happen to the costs? They're going to be considerable, aren't they? Okay? You might get costs awarded against you. So it's a risk. But the important point is, if it involves dishonesty, you have the right to trial by jury. And that's an important signifier in terms of the importance of the offence. So, why is dishonesty a problem? Dishonesty is a problem because it's very difficult to get people to agree what dishonesty is. Okay? Look at these options here. Is dishonesty a description of the way someone has behaved? What we call an objective approach. So you look at what someone has done and you say, I think that was dishonest. Now that's you exercising your judgment about what someone has done. Okay? So you're describing what they've done, which is fine. Some jurisdictions have that approach to dishonesty. An alternative way is that dishonesty depends on what the defendant was thinking. So it's not about what you think, it's about what was going on in the defendant's head, which, as you'll know, is a subjective approach. What the defendant was thinking. Now, which do you think, of those two, which do you think is easier for the prosecution to prove? Objective. Okay? So you say to the jury, look at what this person did. They took some money from their employer without asking, do you think that's dishonest? And a jury would say, yeah, I think it's dishonest. You shouldn't take money from your employer. Okay? It's a completely different question. What did the defendant think of what he was doing? All right? Now, it may be that the defendant was owed some wages. Okay? He took the money without asking, but he was owed some wages. Did the employee think he was dishonest? Possibly not. He might have thought, I'm owed my wages. I'm going to take the money. Otherwise I won't get it. So, if you have an objective approach to dishonesty, much easier for the prosecution to prove. If you have a subjective approach, much harder for the prosecution to prove. So we have this issue. Is dishonesty a question of law, or is dishonesty a question of fact? If it's a question of law, then the trial judge can tell the jury what it is. And the jury just have to get on with it. If it's a question of fact, who decides? Jury. So if it's a question of fact, it becomes far less predictable, doesn't it? Okay? Which of course is why some people would always choose jury trial. Because they think that a jury might be more sympathetic. Let's suppose I'm a famous person. I'm not. Well, sort of. Let's suppose I'm really famous. Let's suppose I'm a celebrity. Okay? And I go to a shop, a supermarket, I pick something up, maybe one of these little presenter things, okay? And I think, well, that's interesting. I walk around the shop, and then, without thinking, I leave the shop. Problem? Yeah? It looks like theft, doesn't it? I've taken someone's property, I'm acting like I'm the owner. Okay? Now, if I'm stopped outside the store, I might say, I'm terribly sorry, I forgot. How does that sound? Bit dubious? Okay? Now, it may be that the only thing between me and a prosecution for theft is whether or not I'm dishonest. So, if I were to go to a magistrate and I were to say, yes, I picked it up in the shop, I simply forgot and I walked out without paying, the magistrate might say, everyone says that. Yeah. You would say that, wouldn't you? Okay, guilty. If I go before a jury, do you think a jury might be more sympathetic?
Yes.
Might be. Has anyone here ever walked out of a shop without paying for something because they've forgotten? Oh, right, okay. You're also very honest. How about this? You see this in England a lot. You see women going around supermarkets and they have a baby on the trolley, or child, okay, and the child says, I'm hungry. So the mum gets some food out of the trolley before she's paid for it and gives it to the child. Yeah? So the baby's eating some fruit or a bar of chocolate. Okay? Has the mum paid? No. Looks like theft, doesn't it? Yeah?
It does.
Is the mum dishonest? How do you know? Okay? How do you know? A magistrate might say, you should never do it. You should never eat the food until you've paid for it. Right? If you were on a jury, and I'm looking at the women particularly, if you were on a jury, would you say, well, that happens? Yeah? You might do. So you might take the view that actually it's not dishonest because you're more sympathetic to the defendant. So the role that the jury has to play here is very important. So let's, before we get into any detail, just think about what's dishonest and what's not. Okay? There was some research done by the University of Essex about 2 years ago. I don't know if any of you saw it. And they presented interviewees with a series of scenarios. And they said, if this happens, what would you do? So, a very simple one. You find some money in the street. Okay, have you got some money? So, I don't have to carry any money because John has the money. Fantastic. So what have we got, John?
1,000 tacker there.
1,000 tacker, okay. Right. Okay, so, here you go. Sorry about the video. So you're walking down the street outside the college, and what do we find in the street? Yeah? Okay. Would you pick it up?
Yes.
Is there anybody who would not pick it up? Hands up if you would not pick it up. You are a very rich man. You are a very rich man. Or you are the most honest man on the planet. Take your pick. Okay. Maybe both. Unlikely, but maybe both. Okay. So, most of you would pick it up. Okay. Now, why are you picking it up?
Because I think it's a bunny.
Right?
Yeah.
So what are you going to do with it?
I will look for the owner. If I don't get it, I'll keep it.
Right. So, should we go outside and test this? So you are going to stand in the street. I mean, I think you'd be killed in the rush. So you're going to stand in the street and say, did anybody drop this? Seriously? Are you going to do that? Maybe not. Okay. So what do? You go, thank you very much. Right. Okay. Is it dishonest? Is it dishonest? So, yes, it's dishonest. Would you do it? Should we do that again? Is it dishonest?
Yes.
Yes. Would you do it? Yes, thank you. You're all dishonest. I have flown 6,000 miles to tell you that you're all dishonest. No, it's a... Why did I come? It is such an obvious thing, okay? I mean, everybody has found money in the street. My favourite story about finding money in the street was when I was a little boy, my dad took me to the ice cream shop, and we didn't have a lot of money, okay? So I used to get a small ice cream. And he took me to an ice cream shop, and he bought me a huge ice cream. I thought, wow, it's fantastic. And I said, you know, it's a special treat. Why have I got this huge ice cream? And he said, I found some money when we were queuing. So I'll treat you to a big ice cream. I thought, fantastic. We got back home, and he was going through his pockets. I said, what's the problem? He said, I've lost some money. And it was great, because actually, it was his money, in fact, on the floor. Which makes it interesting, actually, 'cause was he dishonest when he picked up the money? Yeah. Whose money was it? His. Could still, those of you who are good with your criminal law will know he could still be guilty of attempted theft, couldn't he? Yeah. Because he honestly believed the money was somebody else's. But let's leave that for a minute. Okay. So here are some others. What happens if you're overpaid by your employer? Anyone ever been overpaid? No. Yeah? Okay, it happens. Yeah? Okay. A long time ago, I had a flat in London. I sold it. And of course, the money's meant to go to the bank, you know, you borrowed the money from. What did they do with the money? They put it in my account. Fantastic. I went to the cash point to see what my cash was, I didn't know, and I had thousands of pounds in my bank account. What do? You tell the bank, right? Don't ever spend it, because you'll go to jail. But some people would think, well, if you're overpaid, fine, it's not your problem. Whose job is it to get your wages right? Your employer. Okay, so you would say, that's not dishonest. This is very common, isn't it? Being given too much change in a shop. Has anyone ever been given too much change? Yeah? Yeah? Thank you. Happens all the time. So what do? If you know you've been given too much change, do you say to the shop assistant, I'm sorry, that's not right? Or do you do this very kind of quiet, very much, get out of the store, as quickly as you can, outside, yes! Okay, is that dishonest? Yes. Would you keep it? So every one of you would go back in the shop? Really? Whose job is it to give you the right change? Shopkeeper. Okay. Does it make any difference if it's a big supermarket or a street trader? If it's a big supermarket and they give you too much change, you going to give it back? No. If it's a street trader, you might do, all right, because you think, that's not right, you know, they need it more than I do. But if it's a big supermarket, you might think, who cares? They've got loads of money. It doesn't matter, all right? It's all about attitudes, isn't it? It's all about attitudes and circumstances and context. So you might take some money or you might take some property from your employer because you don't think your employer pays you enough. Okay? What's the most common thing that people steal from work? Stationery. I don't know what takes over people's minds. They get a job in an office and they become stationery hoarders. Okay? Suddenly their houses are full of paper clips, pencils, pens. Number one item? No. Number one item? Post-its. Okay? They go post-it mad. And they say, wow, I work in the office. I can take these home. That's fine. Before you know it, you're taking the laptop home. You're taking the printer home. You're taking the screen home. Okay? Because I'm worth it. Where do you draw the line? It would be pretty mean to be prosecuted for theft of stationery, trivial items. But there comes a point where actually it's not right, is it? And the difference is probably when we start to think, hang on, that's dishonest. But it's about trying to work out where do you cross the line? At what point does it really become dishonest? And this last one, I don't know if you used this example when you were studying theft. This is a really interesting one. Let's suppose you're looking after some animals, for a farmer, let's say. The animals are starving. Yeah? The animals are really starving. But the farmer has loads of food, loads of animal feed. The farmer leaves you in charge for the day. And before he leaves, the farmer says, now, while I'm gone, you must not feed the animals. You got that? Okay. Whose animal feed is it? Who does the animal feed belong to? Farmers. It's not yours, is it? Right? Have you got a clear instruction not to feed the animals? Yes. Good. Okay. So, farmer goes off for the day, and you're looking at these animals, and you're thinking, this is terrible. This is terrible. I've got to feed these animals. So you take some of the farmer's animal feed, and you feed the animals. Are you a thief?
No.
Well, let's check. Let's test it, shall we? Okay. Was there property?
Yes.
What was the property? Animal feed. Right. Good. Did it belong to someone else?
Yes.
Yeah, it belonged to the farmer. Have you appropriated it?
Yes.
Yeah, you've treated it as if it's your own. You fed it to the animals. Okay. Do you intend to permanently deprive the farmer of the feed?
Yes.
Well, yes, until it comes out the other end of the animal. We won't go there. Okay. The answer is yes. Okay. So, what's the only bit left? Dishonesty. So again, we have this question: was it dishonest
No.
to feed the animals?
No.
Did he tell you not to?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you know it wasn't your feed? Yeah. Okay. How many people would be tempted to feed the animals? These animals are starving. There's plenty of food nearby. Yeah? What's the decent thing to do? Feed the animals, right? What's the humanitarian thing to do? Feed the animals. You see the argument building up? Okay? But it's interesting. The property doesn't belong to you, and you've been told not to do this. Now, is that a case where you'd go for jury trial?
Yes.
I think you might do. Okay? So we need to understand what it is a jury would be told. So, these are our elements of theft. You're all familiar with that. Okay? Right. Little refresher. How does English criminal law deal with dishonesty? Well, if the defendant is charged with theft, the golden rule, as I'm sure you all know, is you always start with the statute. Okay? I mean, a little examination tip for those of you who are going to do an examination involving crime. I've marked thousands of papers where students make the mistake, when they're talking about dishonesty, they start talking about Goshen straight away. Okay? You don't do that. If it's theft, the golden rule is you always go through the statutory provisions first. And as we'll see, if you go through the statutory provisions first, you might never need to go anywhere near the test in Goshen. Right? But so many students, because they remember the cases, you know, so many students think, all right, I've got a case on this, I've got to tell the examiner what the case is. No, you haven't. Okay, do the statute first. Now, the way in which the statute deals with dishonesty is really interesting. And when I say interesting, I'm using interesting the way lawyers use interesting. I.e., it's not interesting to anybody else, but it's interesting to lawyers. Okay? Because what they do is they have a negative definition. It's really strange. You look at the statute, and it looks like it's going to define dishonesty. What it actually does, it tells you what dishonesty is or not. Okay? It's quite unusual. So let's check them out. 2.1a, A person's appropriation of property belonging to another is not to be regarded as dishonest if he appropriates the property in the belief that he has the right in law to deprive the other of it. Now this is sometimes called the claim of right defence. Now there's an error there. It's not a defence. What we're doing is denying mens rea. Right? It's a defence argument, but it's not actually a defence in law. Okay? Now, tell you what mistakes students make here. What students do is they read that and they say to themselves, right, he's not dishonest if he's got the right in law to take the property. That's not what it says. Okay? It says he's not dishonest if he believes he has the right in law. Now that is the key to understanding this. Does the defendant have to prove he's got the legal right? No. The defendant has to provide evidence that he believed he had the legal right. So, let's take John's money. I like taking John's money. Okay? So, you find the money in the street. You pick it up. Let's just check our elements of theft, shall we? Is this property? Okay. Does it belong to another? Yes. Not mine, is it? Have I appropriated it? Just by picking it up. I appropriated it. Okay. So, am I dishonest? Well, you start with 2.1a. Do I believe I've got the legal right to keep this money? No, careful. I'm not asking, do I have the legal right? I'm asking, do I believe I've got the legal right? Okay, so do I believe I've got the legal right? Have you ever heard this English expression, finders keepers?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, what does finders keepers mean? If you find it, you can keep it, right? Okay, now, you'd be surprised. There are a lot of people who believe, and I stress the word believe, that that is a legal right. Okay? Now, they're wrong, but what's important is what they believe. So, I pick the money up, and I think, oh, finders keepers. I honestly believe I can keep this. I do not have to stand up in the street and say, has anybody dropped this? Okay? So, if I honestly believe in finders keepers, am I a thief? Who said yes? Okay? I honestly believe. Okay?
Honestly, if you honestly believe, then nothing is wrong with it. If you honestly believe, you will find them guilty.
Yeah.
So you won't be guilty.
I will not be guilty.
Yes.
Yeah, good, we agree. Okay. So it's based on what I believe. Now, this is only 1,000 taka, right? Okay. Let's suppose I find a bundle of notes in the street and it's 1,000,000 taka. Yeah? And I think, finders keepers. Am I a thief? Well, I always tell my students, you know, if it was English money, I always tell my students, if you find £100,000 in banknotes in the street, give it straight back to the mafia. Because if you don't, they'll kill you. Okay? My point is this: if it's 1,000, then we might say, fine,